Joining me now to discuss how it might work, MST Financial Senior Energy Analyst, Saul Kavonic. Saul, gas reservation. In simple layman's terms, explain what one is and how it might work if we had one on the East Coast.
Well, Peter, as a starting point, it's important for us to recognise why the government is reviewing its gas policy and looking to impose a reservation, and that's because the gas market intervention and policy that Labor developed at the end of 2022, in fact, almost to the day 3 years ago and 2023, has turned out to be an absolute abject failure for every single stakeholder in the market. And now the government's own regulatory bodies are acknowledging that that policy intervention by Labor has resulted in less gas overall in the market, which of course is putting upward pressure on prices. And that's why Labor's looking to ultimately repeal and replace the mistake that they made 3 years ago. Now, what a gas reservation is very much in the eye of the beholder. And Labor's been very tight-lipped about what this could be. Now, in theory, a reservation policy, quite more similar to what we see on the west coast of Australia, could present a better outcome than the current patchwork of overlapping and ultimately failed policy mechanisms regarding gas on the East Coast, whereby it essentially via a permit scheme links the amount of exports that can happen to the amount of domestic gas that will be delivered into the market. But the devil will be in the details. And the concern I have, speaking with industry participants over the last week, is the government still seems to be working on key elements of this policy, even at this late hour. They're telling different things to different industry participants. There's so many cooks here. We've got the Prime Minister's office, Bowen's office, King's office, Farrell's office, Ayres' office, all involved. And the concern here is, while this is an opportunity to put an end to the constant market interventions and put a sustainable reservation policy in place, that instead Labor are going to botch it once again and leave everyone worse off, higher prices for everyone here in Australia, and then they're going to intervene and change the policy in another 2 to 3 years' time, because this one again won't work.
I guess underlying all of that is their fundamental opposition to gas. I mean, that's part of the problem. So, you know, they speak with a forked tongue. They need gas, they need to reserve gas, they need gas for the transition. But fundamentally, the left of the party, the left of the parliament are anti-gas. And it's, you know, no better highlighted than the fact that in this bid for a reservation, Saul, we've got the Victorian government saying we must have a gas reservation on the East Coast, but it's the same Victorian government that have banned gas exploration in the state.
Well, I mean, Victorian government is beyond the pale on this. Hostility towards gas for years now, and yet they essentially want to now force Queenslanders to take less royalties, have less tax revenue themselves in order to subsidise Victoria, who refuses to develop their own gas, which is beyond ridiculous. I mean, that said, we should acknowledge that at a federal level, Labor government has moved more to the centre, particularly since the election, on gas, at least at a high level kind of understanding setting, but that is yet to filter down into the details. We still have huge approval problems. We still have a Labor government funding activist lawfare against the gas projects. And the problem and the concern that I really have here is, if they don't get the details right and they kick it into next year, we're going to end up with another freeze of investment. And it's just going to make the same problem we've had over the last few years getting worse. And it's really getting to closer and closer to crunch time. We're already seeing thousands of jobs being lost, manufacturing shutting down because of high energy and particularly high gas prices across the east coast of Australia. We really need to fix this now. We can't afford it to let it keep going on.
Just can I get a quick comment before we go, Saul? Victoria, AGL has walked away from a wind farm, an offshore wind farm. This was the third project for Gippsland that's now gone belly up in the terms of the transition. This doesn't bode well.
Well, it doesn't. And I mean, these projects have been uneconomic. And the problem then is what the government's been planning towards these green targets, which are now going to be impossible to meet. And they haven't planned the contingency in place. And in fact, Lily D'Ambrosio's bragged about the fact she hasn't even discussed the potential of extending coal-fired power generation further to make up that gap. The other concern here would be we've seen a recent announcement, for example, by Snowy underpinning new wind farms. And my concern here would be, on your previous segment, where they're taking away some subsidies for energy users, but we might
Mhm.
see the government using Snowy to essentially subsidise uneconomic renewable power via more or less transparent means. And the taxpayers are now starting to fork the bill here in addition to energy users.
Yeah, it goes from bad to worse. I'll leave it there, Saul. Thank you.